All right, today let's jump into Algorand, take a look at what is moving the token, and also kind of a long-term look of where Algorand may be going. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's get into it. Algorand made news today, of course, with FIFA announcing its partnership with blockchain innovator Algorand. And a lot's happening within this. And I think as you see different projects starting to make these moves, one of the things to me that is very important is not only the sponsorship deals or the partnerships, but how deep is the partnership? Because in many cases, it's usually just a sponsorship. Maybe they do an NFT project versus actually someone getting behind a project and starting to maybe create entire business plans around how they're going to integrate this. If you look at what they said here on this article, the agreement means that Algorand will become the official blockchain platform of FIFA and provide the official blockchain support wallet solution. This to me is big, the wallet solution that eventually will start to roll out. As per the sponsorship agreement, they'll also be the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 regional supporter for North America and Europe, and a FIFA Women's World Cup Australia in New Zealand in 2023. So that shows more exposure to the space. Obviously, soccer is by far one of the largest sports in the world, and I think giving that kind of exposure out to something like Algorand is really going to do a good job with getting people to understand really what it is and why it's important to the ecosystem within cryptocurrencies overall. Here's a little bit about what their chief business officer said. The announcement is an exciting moment for FIFA. It's going to officially enter into the world of blockchain. So again, this goes back into strategies and how these companies are going to be building a lot of their overall go-forward strategies with new blockchain tactics. And I think this is something that we're seeing more and more with companies developing, whether it's NFTs, it's looking at Web3 products and components, or they're looking some sort of payment rail integration. All those kind of things really need the right kind of blockchain partnerships, and I think this is a good one for FIFA. So it even says it, at FIFA we must constantly strive to identify and explore most cutting-edge, sustainable, and transparent means. Again, hitting on sustainability, Algorand being one of the greenest chains out there, meaning increased revenues to continue support of global football development. Algorand is clearly looking forward at a partnership that can achieve all those goals. And if you don't know much around Algorand, this is led by Silvio Micali, who is a Turing Award winner. The blockchain is a technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations, governments, and digital native DeFi applications. In particular, Algorand helps organizations finance, gaming, music, art, and sports worlds seek to adopt Web3. And I think this is the thing to me. There's a handful of chains out there that do a really good job at converting Web2 or hand-holding the Web2 environment that we're seeing around business today into Web3. Algorand is one of them. Avalanche is another. Polygon does a really good job with this. And we're starting to see more and more convergence around other chains that are starting to link on to this fact, and that is that we've got a lot of Web2 dev stack that's already out there, including developers and tech, that needs to make that transition. And a lot of these Web2 kind of powerhouses, including someone like FIFA, need that kind of hand-holding. I won't say it really as a hand-holding, but they need that pathway, that onboard ramp to kind of get them into Web3. So definitely good stuff. Now, it's not all sun and roses for Algorand. There are still people out there that are looking at this, that it could still be a correction coming for Algorand. So this right here is a report on Algorand's price in danger of 25% correction. And this was a pretty interesting analysis, and this is, of course, despite the FIFA partnership. If you look at what they're talking about, and it did rally this week on the announcement, but the scenario that they kind of get into it is the large portion of Algo's upside took cues off of FIFA's announcement. It's also confirmed that it's a regional supporter, which we all know. This is all the good news side of it. And the fact that the exposure is going to be big, I just mentioned that, 3.5 billion. But this is where it gets a little bit weird. Latest buyout or bout of buying Algorand showed signs of faltering as Algo reached a critical resistance. This was the one that where they really kind of bounced off the top. And it was about right here. If you look at what's happening within this chart right here, and this is where they're concerned about right here of seeing a potential fall off right here in a downward trend, because we have that downward trend happening. And if you look at the sentiment data, which I'll show you in a second, it's a little flat. And with something like FIFA, you would assume that we would see more of a pop in sentiment. Now, we saw a little bit of an adjustment in price, but sentiment did not follow with it. And I'll explain that in a second. But what they're talking about right here, additionally, the 74-cent level also coincided with the upper trend line of a descending channel pattern. That's what I just showed, raising algo's possibility of undergoing a pullback move toward the channel's lower trend, which is around 50 cents, which could be happening in this month or maybe possibly in June. All right, let's pause for today's sponsor, and that is Celsius Network. 1.6 million people call Celsius their home for crypto. Join them to buy, swap, borrow, earn, and send crypto all in one app with zero fees and the best rates. Make sure and head over to celsius.network to get started today. I wanted to take a look at, and because when I looked at this, I thought, God, this is going to be great for Algorand's price. If you're an investor in Algorand, most likely you're going to see some upside. Then I went over and looked at the chart, and I was trying to figure out where this might flow, and I saw a couple of different things here that were a little bit concerning. One, they had a nice little uptrend right here, and let me show you where that came from right back here in mid-March. And right there to the top, you had almost a 45%. That was that nice little run we had on Bitcoin in mid-March. Nice little 45% move. Then sentiment started to adjust right here, 73, and then we had a 72, and then it fell to the 4 at a 70 with a 68. This was right here on April 11th. We got a little bit of sideways action, and then that continued fall off, which again, this goes back to my point of when you're dealing with scenarios like this, where you've got a falling sentiment of these two areas, this is a big downtrend push. And that goes back to this whole chart that they were just showing, is this downtrend. Now, what you've got here is this little bit of movement around price action that is mostly driven, when you think about it right here, by this FIFA news. And here's the thing, with this being the case, we should see a little bit more movement. Now, the only thing to me that's interesting is the fact that right here in this space, you've only got a 70.08 and a 69.11, which is a good thing when amplification is not starting to depart too far. And what I mean by that, if you think about it here where it started falling, you had a 70 and a 68 right here, a 73 and a 72 was sideways, and then you have a 70 and a 69. Also, what I think is going to happen is we're going to see a little bit of sideways action before we see a downtrend coming into, I know that's a lot of green squigglies there, but before we see a downtrend coming on Algorand. So this may be a short-lived, if you were long on Algorand right now, you're probably in doing some great little trades if you're swing trading, but maybe you're in more of a long-term trade position for Algorand and looking for a buy opportunity. Remember, a lot of this is still, if you zoom out a little bit on where this all goes on Algorand. Let me kind of just show you the chart over a period of time. This has had some pretty good fall off here. If you look at your percentage all the way back here in November of last year, let's go to their high and get to down where they are right now, 76% down. So you're still in a good position if you're early into Algorand now and maybe looking for a position to ride out an altcoin. Algorand may be one of those that is positioning for a recovery once we get past this little zone right here, which I think is going to happen in the next 4 to 6 weeks for a downtrend. Now, could the FIFA news, I think they would have to have some other partnerships, which they may, that starts to roll, and either that or some use cases that's starting to implement some of the Web3 solutions, or at least an indicator that it's happening. Those kind of things do move it. But again, it goes back to the whole scenario that's, we have a very interesting situation right now between announcing things. And this is something that I watch very closely, because the strategy that a lot of these blockchain companies and projects are doing, you have to time these right, because we've got a Fed meeting that's coming out and a report that's tomorrow. You've got scenarios on job reports that are coming at the end of the week. You've got some potentially bad news And a lot of the market is priced in because of this. So there's not a lot of movement here. So announcing FIFA, I know that, PR is PR, but announcing something as big as this, timing would have been maybe a little bit better if they'd have been able to just squeeze that out really right back here at the end of March instead of at the end of April moving. That would have been a completely different move. You could have probably seen, Algorand move upwards back into the $1.40 range at that period of time. So anyway, lots happening here. If you guys want to check out these sentiment tools that we use, just jump over here to the CPI, which let me kind of show you guys how to get to that so you can kind of understand. This is a tool that we use all the time. We track 15 tokens on a 3-time weekly, and Algorand is one of them. So if I click that, it'll bring you right into the Algorand chart. You can kind of see the movements. We use this to trade a lot with. Obviously, the chart right now is showing some downward market sentiment, but Algorand kind of somewhat holding. The question will be is if we start to see this one move, because it's, as I said earlier, 70.05 from Friday of last week, and then Monday was a 70.08, 69.09, and a 69.11. Too soft of a movement for such big news with FIFA. So to me, that tells me we've got a lot of down pressure with Algorand. So anyway, keep a look at those. If you guys want to check out the CPI, make sure and just go to paulbaronnetwork.com. You can click the link below. It'll take you to it. It's a great tool, and it helps you kind of understand a little bit about more on the sentiment side of things, what gives you a little bit of a leading indicator on all this good stuff. So if you guys are listening in at the podcast right now, make sure and tune over here for the charts and all of our breakdowns. This is where we do it on YouTube. Make sure and search Paul Barron Network. You'll find us. And of course, if you want to reach me, it's out on Twitter at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.